When people think of Yersinia pestis and the plague, they think of medieval Europe, millions of deaths, and plague doctors. Many are unaware of the deadly microorganism that threatened a coastal American city. The San Francisco plague of 1900 to 1904 was a highly evolved microorganism that thrived in filth and influenced racial attitudes, politics, and science of the time. 1900, the year of the rat in the Chinese zodiac, would provide a challenge to the people of San Francisco's Chinatown. In the year 1900, San Francisco was a thriving American port with trade connections to China. At the time of the San Francisco plague, 25,000 people lived in a 12-block space of San Francisco's bustling Chinatown. When doctors inspected houses in Chinatown, they discovered a network of underground passages filled with rats. During periods of heavy rainfall, sewage would leak into the dwellings where large families lived. Poor sanitation and economic connections with China were two causative factors of the bubonic plague in San Francisco. On March 6th, Dr. Frank P. Wilson examined the first plague case, a man named Chick Jin. Bacteriologist Wilfred H. Kellogg examined a lymph node smear and observed plague bacillus. Kellogg and Dr. Joseph J. Kinyon followed Koch's postulates when analyzing Yersinia pestis. They inoculated a guinea pig, rat, and monkey, all of which died with similar symptoms. The gram-negative Coccobacillus bacterium Yersinia pestis causes bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic plagues. The San Francisco plague was of the bubonic form. Yersinia pestis is considered zoonotic and transmissible from animals to humans through a flea vector. Natural immunity to the disease made rats ideal carriers. The bacterium has a 60 to 70% fatality in 2 to 6 days, and medieval forms of Yersinia pestis are ancestral to existing Yersinia pestis today. Yersinia pestis is characterized by a variety of signs and symptoms. A skin lesion forms after the bite of an infected flea. The infected person experiences fever, headache, chills, and weakness. A bubo emerges a few days later. A bubo is a pus-filled painful swelling that occurs in the lymph nodes. Severe symptoms include an increased heart rate, and low blood pressure can lead to shock and death. Officials took numerous steps to contain and eliminate the plague in San Francisco. The City Board of Health imposed a quarantine on Chinatown to prevent federal and state interventions. Dr. Joseph Kinyon and the Marine Hospital Service were tasked with disease prevention efforts. Unfortunately, Chinese citizens denied Dr. Kinyon's plague diagnosis, hiding the sick and dying from health officials. Dr. Kinyon and the Marine Hospital Service hoped to inoculate locals with experimental half-kind prophylactics. Chinese citizens retaliated by instigating riots and closing businesses when officials arrived. As a result, vaccination efforts were unsuccessful. Hesitancy towards new medication in San Francisco parallels vaccine skepticism in our modern age. In addition to Chinese backlash, Republican Governor Henry Gage and local business leaders opposed a state quarantine. They feared the plague could destroy the produce and tourism industries. Public pressure and negative press coverage resulted in Kinyon's relocation to Detroit. Kinyon was replaced with Dr. Rupert Blue. Gage's poor handling of the plague led to a decline in popularity. Henry Gage lost re-election in 1902 to Republican George Pardee. Pardee avoided a railroad embargo by introducing preventative measures in 1903. Health measures implemented by Pardee included rat control and intensified sanitation. City and state boards ordered the removal of decaying wooden balconies and cellars, replacing them with concrete basements. Health boards ruled against quarantine in California, and the anti-plague campaign was terminated in April of 1905. In total, the disease led to 121 deaths and 8 recoveries. Although plague is rare and curable with antibiotics, it still exists in present times. In 2020, California experienced its first case of plague in 5 years. The economic, political, scientific, and racial impacts of San Francisco's plague offer new perspectives when navigating future epidemics or pandemics.